The White House is pushing back on the fact that President Trump revealed highly classified information to top Russian diplomats, according to the Washington Post.
Yeah, the Washington Post is reporting that information was shared during a meeting with the Russian foreign minister and the Russian ambassador to the U.S. during an Oval Office meeting last week.
President Donald Trump's national security advisor says information that President Trump shared with the Russians was wholly appropriate and based on open source reporting.
So Washington Post reporter David Nakamura joins us now by phone from the White House. David, thanks for joining us. First, I want to ask you, the White House, today wouldn't say if the information shared was classified, but H.R. McMaster did go after leaks. Let's play some of that for you.
The real issue, and I think what I'd like to see really debated more, is that our national security has been put at risk by those violating confidentiality and those releasing information to the press that could be used connected with other information available to make American citizens and others more vulnerable.
All right, so the Washington Post actually withheld some of the info it had because of its sensitive nature, and we know that that was specifically the city in where this particular information came from, where this intel came from. So, David, what do you make of them going after leakers in their effort to contain the fallout, and any more information about really how that would impact the intel to know that exact place where that intel came from?
This has been a clear strategy of this administration to suggest that the real storyline here, as there continue to be investigations about President Trump's campaign and its alleged contacts with officials in Moscow, has been to go after what they're saying is a real story, which is the leaks that coming in from, intelligence communities and other places within the government. And this goes to a pattern that President Trump has been said to be very concerned about holdovers from the Obama administration that are attempting to undermine him and sort of discredit his electoral victory. Now, in this particular story, we had several of our national security reporters working with, sources of their own. And what they've been very careful in the story that we've published to say what they know and what they did not know, and to withhold, as you said, some information that is, that the national security officials said would further jeopardize security. So I think what they're trying to do here at the White House is distract from, obviously, this very sensitive issue and the fact that President Trump appears to have misstepped in relaying this information to the Russian foreign minister.
David, the White House said that the president made the decision in the spur of the moment in the context of the conversation. That was what General McMaster said during that White House briefing that you were at. The report that was published in your newspaper, the Washington Post, sets this up as if he was almost boasting. Whether he's technically allowed to do that or not, what sort of concerns does that raise, especially as the president embarks on this trip abroad?
So usually when presidents meet with foreign officials, particularly, the presidents of countries, counterparts, heads of state, they're well briefed ahead of time, and that's from all levels of government. The question we're having here is this meeting with the foreign minister Lavrov kind of popped onto the schedule essentially the day before it happened. It had not been announced ahead of time. It seemed to have been a sort of a favor to the Russian President Putin. President Trump had talked to Putin by phone, which we did know about a week earlier. And there had been some reporting that he had asked the president to meet with his foreign minister and his ambassador, and that's what happened. The press was not allowed into the meeting. But the questions at the briefing today for General McMaster were, how much did the president get prepared? How much was he briefed for this meeting? And did this just come up in the spur of the moment, as you say, which the reporting suggests that it did, and that he was sort of, as you said, boasting about the intelligence that he received and sort of showing what he did know. But, again, the administration's message here today was, look, this was information that was out in the public record, that, even if he did, they wouldn't confirm what he said or what he didn't say. But even if President Trump mentioned a specific city or not, General McMaster's point was that if you looked at where the ISIS and sort of power bases are, you would be able to sort of name certain cities. It wouldn't be that hard to figure out. He said, and this was probably the most remarkable thing, that President Trump wasn't even briefed on sort of how this information was collected or where it came from. He didn't even know that, which is alarming to a lot of people in national security circles that said the president should know where he's getting information and being told how sensitive it might be.
And David, are you hearing that we are definitely going to feel an impact on the fact that President Trump did, sort of reveal this information? Are we going to have an impact on intel sharing with other allies?
Well, I think that's the big concern. We don't know if this one incident that will happen. We don't know whether the Russians will be able to use what was said to identify potentially the the source of the information, the partner, the ally that provided the information to the United States, and on the condition that it was not shared widely and not even shared with other allies because of concerns about how this information was collected. But it's very sensitive. And for a president who has basically said that fighting terrorism is his #1 priority, as President Trump has said over and over and has said even today here in his meeting with the Turkish president, what's going on right now, this is very alarming because he may have set back some of the efforts of some of our intelligence communities and the partnerships that they've built up with other countries whose intelligence sources we rely on to a large degree in some of our counterterrorism efforts.
David, there have been a whole host of Democrats who have commented already on this information, the news that was reported in your newspaper.
Right.
But for the most part, Republican members of both houses have been fairly quiet. We know that the CIA Director Mike Pompeo will be briefing lawmakers tonight.
Right.
Some have asked that the transcript of that meeting be given to lawmakers involved in the Russia investigation. Are you hearing that? Or, in fact, I just want to read for our viewers. John McCain tweeted about 5 hours ago. Check out today. Time President Trump spent sharing sensitive info with Russians equals time not spent on Ukraine, Assad atrocities, and election interference. That's from Senator McCain. That's about the harshest thing we've heard so far from the GOP. Are you expecting to hear more, especially after Director Pompeo briefs them?
Well, I don't know if we'll expect more right after Pompeo briefs them, but I think the question is whether if more information is made public about what happened here, then possibly you would get deeper reaction. But so far, we've seen not that many Republicans break from this president despite continued revelations, continued with his campaign's conduct with Russia, his transitions contact with folks in Moscow. And, until that happens, this White House will continue to close ranks and try to deflect and distract the public from what the real story is, which is, sort of the sensitive information being shared, and continue to say, no, the real story is that leakers inside the administration are trying to undermine the president. So I think until you see Republicans start to break ranks, the White House will continue to feel confident that they'll be able to keep pressing their message, at least for the president's core supporters.
And David, what do you think that tipping point is going to be for the Republicans? I mean, we heard from Senator Mitch McConnell saying he would like to see less drama coming out of the White House. But really, what's it going to take for them to really get out there and say something?
Two things are going on. I mean, right now the president's preparing for this big foreign trip, and I think that could, to some degree, depending on how it goes, shift some attention away from this. Now, that's a lot to be said because our reporters will continue to go after this story, continue to look into connections with the Russians and the president's conduct in this meeting. But I think, the White House hopes that this can begin to distract. The other question is, there's been a lot of rumors about the president making changes to his staff. And if you talk about, sort of having a little less drama, potentially, if the president were to make some changes, which we don't know yet for sure, but it's certainly been rumored, that could potentially, reshuffle things, although I think it'll take time, maybe to the point where this White House has been sort of marked by infighting and rival factions. Potentially, if one side sort of emerges from that with more power, then perhaps you would have a little bit more consistency and maybe a little less drama coming out of this. But I think, I guess, again, until more details emerge from this reporting, it just still remains to be seen.
All right, David Nakamura for us at the White House. Thank you.